Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, well, welcome to our podcast, old chum.
Today we're covering the iconic 1966 superhero show, Batman.
This legendary series stars the great Adam West and Burt Ward as Batman and Robin, as they face a new villain every week, and each more sinister and kooky than the last.
Yes. And I started watching, I know you watched it. Well, I know I started watching when they had the retro channel. And they would show reruns of the show on the weekends for a sort of a super Saturday sci-fi hour, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I had never seen all the episodes because they've been showing them in syndication for decades. And I would get to see an episode now and then. And then when they were running them in syndication before, on the regular network channels, they were always showing the same episodes over and over. But with the, I think it's 50, I think, PN50, and the same channel that Spenguli airs on, they began to show the entire series.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to see all these episodes I'd never seen. So not only was I able to know whom Adam West and Burt Ward were, and the show was as a child because of syndication, but now due to awesome syndication, and them just bringing them back and airing them with other superhero shows, like I think it was the original Superman with George Reeves, and Wonder Woman with Linda Carter, and the Hulk with Bill Bixby, and what else was on?
Oh man, there's probably even more that we're not even aware of.
But during that whole Saturday evening time slot, they would have and they also had at some point the Green Hornet, and
that's true. And there was a crossover with Batman too,
which was awesome. So it's just wonderful that they've remained loyal to showing these shows, and generations after generation are learning about these shows and how they work into the history and pop culture of American comics.
Right.
And it's just fantastic. And yes, you're right. It was wonderful watching that with you. You're getting to watch it with me, I should say, for the first time. And my getting to see episodes that I had never seen aired previously. I was so excited because I'm like, oh, I watched that as a kid and they used to show it in syndication and blah, 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 blah. And I got to actually see the entire series over the course of a year when we would watch it on Saturdays. So, and it became kind of like a challenge because we would be every Saturday we would honor the Sabbath, and then we'd be hoping that when it started at 6 p.m. we get to see it. So there were some Saturdays when it went into 8 and 9 at night, we would have to miss a lot of it and end up seeing, just maybe the tail end and Spenguli. But then when it ended earlier in the evening, then we would catch the whole thing from 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock. So,
right. And we've seen, like I said, just every episode of the show. There's only one sort of a lost episode where they were supposed to introduce Two-Face, and it never got put TV. I think maybe it was considered too dark, so it never got aired. We've also seen the live-action TV movie, the Batman the movie.
And the 2 animated movies.
Yes, which is Return of the Caped Crusaders and Batman vs. Two-Face, which is more of like an animated revival of the lost episode.
And his final animated voiceover role.
Right. And I think, was that all related? Yeah, we found all of that tied together.
We also saw his documentary, Adam West's documentary on Netflix, which was brilliant and exciting. Right. So now that we are fangirling, we've finished fangirling, let's get started on Batman 66 and what has made it so iconic and fun over all of these decades, where kids of all ages, those who watched it originally in the 60s, those who grew up watching it later in the 80s like I did, and those like you who are watching it now and also when you were much younger, get to enjoy the fun and the pop culture status of this show.
Right. And And everything about it was just really, really fun. We do know we were surprised to hear when there were some, very few Batman fans that didn't care for 66 because it wasn't the dark and grimy, I am the night, vengeance-seeking man in the comics or in the newer stuff, and they were really pissed that it was this goofy show. But at the time it came out, it was fine, and I think it's still fine now. But part of the charm is that even though it looked goofy and silly and fun in the best way possible, the villains still, you had to stop them. You still had to stop the villains because you didn't want, people to be kidnapped or stuff to be stolen or Gotham to be robbed. So this is probably the brightest Gotham's ever been, even with all the crime. So
and that had to be a great part of watching this show every week on the same bat time, same bat channel. Yes, they had all these guest stars who were huge Hollywood stars back when it came on. Cesar Romero as the Joker.
Julie Newmar as one of the Catwomen.
Burgess Meredith as the Penguin. Yvonne Craig as Batgirl. And Eartha Kitt as Batgirl. And Lee Merriweather as Batgirl.
You mean Catwoman, right?
Yes, forgive me, guys. Yes, Yvonne Craig is Batgirl. But then you also had Eartha Kitt and Julie Newmar and Lee Merriweather as Catwoman. Forgive me. Right.
And you also have Frank Gorshin as the Riddler. Victor Buono as King Tut, which is a villain I'm surprised they didn't bring back. Maybe there wasn't much they could do with it for comics.
And a whole lot more. Oh, and Carolyn Jones from the Addams Family.
And Vincent Price
as Queen of Diamonds.
And Vincent Price as Egghead.
Yes, who probably was the biggest star they had. And our Nana, of course, watched this show when it originally aired. And she was saying how much fun it was every week watching this series and seeing the stars they loved during the time. The only negative part I can find to it is that when we learned about how this show this show was responsible in part for the cancellation of the Monsters because it was in full color and it was action and they brought to life a superhero character on a different channel and people went to viewing this show instead of the Monsters. So it's bittersweet. You know how much we love the Monsters from my podcast and now you know how much we love Batman 66. You probably already do anyway because we've spoken of it before, but how this one contributed to the demise and cancellation of the other. Right. And for me that's the only dark horse that I can find. But it's for the time it came out, it was groundbreaking, it was historical, and it also set up where, even to this day, where sitcoms and series have guest stars appearing every week to bring up viewership, and it's just become something that's now become an accepted part of pop culture and TV. Right. And this is one of the shows that brought that into being. Right.
And it was always this fun gag they would have if they had to climb up the side of the building, but you knew they were right side up the whole time. And it would be some guest star would pop through the window and say, "Hey, Batman, what are you doing there?" And Batman would know everybody, even dang Santa Claus.
Right.
Like, man, who do you not know?
And this also spawned the beginning of mega merchandising for the superhero. Right. You had comic books, of course, and you had the classic toys and things, but having it in the massive amounts that we learned, and you can still see now on Bing and different places, of the merchandise that's out there that this TV series spawned is incredible. And again, this was the beginning of what we have now, where all our favorite anime and superhero and comics characters have these massive merchandising platforms where everything's available, from toys and cosplay, costumes and things you use every day like notebooks and so forth, and foods and cereal and anything you can think of now is available. And this show is part of the reason why that has come about, and we're so grateful for Batman.
Right. Then you wouldn't have merchandise for many of the other shows we love. So
absolutely. And now we also have to mention Burt Ward. I mean, yes, Adam West is fantastic, and we've gotten to see him over the years. When Nana watches a syndicated show, she'll tell us to come, and we'll see a young Adam West or a baby Adam West. But also, Burt Ward was the second half of the duo, and his show couldn't have existed without him. He's fantastic as Robin, and we've even had people tell us that he was their first crush when they were watching it, and how he was a heartthrob, and the way that he chose to do the character as well is different from the comic book Batman. But as you said, again, it's fun, it's fantastic, and their teamwork worked well.
Right.
I mean, it was just perfect.
Holy fandom, Batman! And there was one episode, the last episodes we really loved the show, and it'll always be like, see you next week to see how it plans out. It's usually like 2 or 3 parters, or they had special, like they had the movie where all the villains were coming together, and that was like the crisis something, like for 66. And it was also spawned a bunch of memes. There was one episode that I always remember because it was just so hilarious how they played it out. There was one where they went to London and they had this villain called the Fog or the Smog or something like that. And it was really all he did was make smog or fog or whatever, and it would pretty much blind people and they couldn't see anything, so he would commit all these crimes so they couldn't see it. And just so happens that Bruce Wayne was in London, both Bruce Wayne and Robin were in London so they could stop him. And I thought what was funny is
Bruce Wayne and Dick.
Yeah, that's why I said Bruce Wayne and Robin. It doesn't matter. Everyone should know at this rate. Bruce Wayne, Robin, you usually made up names. Robin. For here, I thought it was funny for when Batman was in Gotham, he was the man. He was the one every girl wanted, and a heartthrob, like you said. And then for London, it was the opposite. All our fans of Batman, but Robin was the one women wanted.
Yes.
It was hilarious. We was tired of all these girls. And oh my God, it's Robin! And then he had to run away from them because he was a hit there, and it was almost like Japan stuff here. It was hilarious. Oh, what? That was always one of my favorite things about the show. Yes, it was silly and goofy and fun, but it wasn't like, it was embarrassing fun. It was always just lighthearted and fun. It was what they call the bright night.
It was a different interpretation, and he spoke of in his documentary of how he chose to interpret the character. And again, Burt Ward was the perfect match.
Right.
When he auditioned. They were just perfect together. It was just a different interpretation. It was, again, like I mentioned in some previous podcasts, this is how art works. Sometimes given a different interpretation, showing a different side, a different appreciation. And I think for Batman 66, this is the most lovable and fun version of Batman you will ever see.
Right.
And it'll never be seen again. And not only in television shows, live actions, but you'll never see this in print or comics or anything. It was a take that was truly unique, one of a kind, and was brilliant and worked.
Right.
And it did, again, so much for pop culture. There were people who probably never read comics, or maybe just until recently thought comics were dumb or for kids, or you were a nerd for
wasting
reading
your
them.
money.
And it brought that into the forefront and made people appreciate it who didn't. And then one more thing I'd like to mention from the documentary is how Adam West said he could never get over how he would meet kids who had watched the show as people who watched the show as kids, and they would tell him, because of you I became a police officer, because of you I became a lawyer, because of you I learned my moral compass. And he said he was just never not amazed at how someone would tell him how he affected their lives, how he inspired them to be honest and loyal and to seek to work in a way that would help mankind and contribute to the community. And there are not many shows out there that have done that or that do that now. And again, it's historical in the way that it affected pop culture then, and all through these decades, and it's still affecting and inspiring and impressing and being impressionable, I should say, upon people all these many decades later.
Right.
And although Adam West is no longer with us, we still have him as Batman, and in other works he's done, and in documentaries and appearances we can watch. And still, when you watch them, you still get the joy, the same joy the same fun. It's a little sadder because you know he's not here and you don't get to see him in guest appearances and things.
Right, and that's always a fun part for Adam West.
Exactly. We used to love just seeing guest appearances. Like, oh my gosh, it's Adam West.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, it's Omar. Right. But we still can enjoy him and what he left behind. And he left behind this wonderful legacy, not only as Batman and portraying a character that had a moral compass and that didn't believe in killing in whatever way he was presented, but also just as himself as a human being, and hearing the stories about how wonderful he was to work with and how what a really genuinely nice person he was, and how his daughter loves him and his wife, and he was just an all-around package that we don't get so much anymore in live action actors who portray superheroes. We don't get that. And we also don't get how in the 60s you got to see them more up close when they made guest appearances and things. It was just a whole different time when you go back and read and you see these things online.
Right.
That it's, again, it's a more innocent time. And we don't get to interact or see those people we love as much unless we go to a Comic-Con or we go to a Geek Con or something of that nature, whereas they would be everywhere, going everywhere, and just making sure they interacted with their fans in any way that they could.
Right. And one last thing I'd like to add is that it definitely showed, like you said, the innocence of the time and what was considered, vulgar or something. Oh, it's too hot for TV.
Right.
Like, one of my favorite episodes when Batman was offered a role in a Hollywood movie, and it's this steamy romance scene, and they have Robin looking at him like he was being 50 Shades of Grey or something, and he was like, Robin, stop reading that smut. And then when they finally got to the movie, all she did was passionately kiss him. And I was like, that's it? That's a steamy hot scene? You would have thought it was X-rated, something Nana would watch. But point is,
that contributes to the fun of seeing it and enjoying it now.
Right. Because a
different time, and different standards. Not by the comic book authority, but by the television censors.
Right. And, now, still have great superhero shows and movies now. And they've definitely taken over right now. Taken over the world until the next thing comes along and then it's time for that. But
superheroes will be around forever. The anime superheroes and the American superhero shows and mangas and comic books and things are now in the forefront, and they are here to stay.
Right.
And we do have Adam West to thank for the beginning of that.
Right.
And Burt.
Right. And he said, seeing now is so different now with the movies and stuff, and what are the goals of a hero, and everything's more, I guess, cerebral, and seeing the layers of a hero and stuff. And I don't mind that. It's just that seeing this is something that you kind of miss, especially if you grew up with it. And then you're not seeing that anymore. It's not about being gritty and edgy and dark. And how serious can you be? Can you lighten up for 5 minutes? And seeing how, this was compared to now. I think if they ever had a show like this again, the closest we had was The Brave and the Bold, where it adapted like a campy comic book feel.
Right.
If we ever have a show like this again, I think it would still do well, whether it be streaming or on basic cable. Should be on cable anyway.
We thought we had it with the NBC show.
Right.
What was it called?
Yeah, there was something.
It starred Vanessa Hudgens.
Yeah. Oh, Powerless.
Yes, and we thought that's what we were going to get.
And it flopped really bad.
Because the first episode gave you what you were looking for. But then after that, it just turned and became something different than what they advertised. And we even had that iconic intro in the beginning where Adam West actually narrated the intro of the first episode. But we thought that's what we were getting, and we didn't, and it flopped and it was canceled. And I think one great thing, now that you've said that this really show does give, as I mentioned, it's being syndicated since the 60s. And every decade, you've got generation after generation after generation that can enjoy it. And this is a show that you can sit down and multi-generations enjoy. The parents, the grandparents, the kids, and even if you got small children, it's safe for them to watch. Everyone can enjoy it and watch it. and just see a time that's gone by that's never going to be again.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just like a wonderful little time capsule
Mm-hmm.
of, I guess, 60s America and 60s comics, and letting us know what the promise and the possibility of comics and ruling the world could be.
Right. So, if you have seen Batman 66...
We know you've seen Batman 66.
Right.
It's
Just
been
leave
on for decades.
Right. Just leave a comment on how it influenced you, how much you love it, and wanting to see, more of it as well in the comments below.
And what impact it may have had on your childhood growing up, and your moral compass and things as other people have mentioned. It doesn't matter that, we weren't there to watch it in the 60s. You were there in the 70s, and the 80s, and the 90s, and 2000s, 2010s. So, again, it's still having its impact and being wonderful. And if you are one of the lucky people who are able to watch this live when it aired, please comment and let us know, what was it like for you watching it and waiting every week to see it, and seeing the stars, and just what it did for you in your life, and an impact it had on you growing up, and how it's made a difference for you as an adult.
Right. And be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on new podcasts.
Yes, thank you. We do appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ask Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace. See you same bad time,
same bad channel.
And reporters sitting flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. With her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket. Give it to you later on in the form of a locket.